And they just left the room. And the caseworker went out with them. And my husband and I were just sitting there with this baby like, this is really weird.
Some people know that they want kids.
I want kids, I think.
Others know that they don't.
I'm an intentionally child-free person.
And there's a lot of us that are painfully stuck in the middle.
I don't know what I'll do.
I'm trying to bring some clarity to this decision, one conversation at a time.
And I remember being 6 years old. I was in first grade. And I remember feeling very distinct impression that I received that I would adopt at least one of my kids. I remember where we were. We were at a friend's house, my mom's friend's house, and I was playing with their daughter. And I remember being in her backyard and thinking, you will adopt one of your children. And when my husband and I decided to try to start, building a family, and we weren't able to get pregnant, or I was able to get pregnant, we weren't able to carry a pregnancy, we decided to go the adoption route. We were told it would be a 2-year wait for a domestic adoption for a child that wasn't a drug baby, that the 2-year was the minimum wait. And within 2 weeks of our profile going live, we were called and told that we had been picked and she was in labor. Come get your baby tomorrow.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, okay. I have so many questions about everything you just said.
I just knew it would happen. And so even when it came 2 weeks later, I was just ready. I was at peace with it. My husband was not at peace with it. There was a lot of transition for him, but I was ready to assume that role. So subconsciously, I think as a spiritual person, I've always been prepped to kind of feel like a family was in my future. I did question that a lot growing up because my father was not involved in my life very much. He suffered from alcoholism, and he was dysfunctionally involved in my life, and I really didn't want that life. And then I also questioned whether or not I wanted a family because my mom was married 4 times. Her generation, you didn't really date, you got married. And she married 4 incredibly awful people. The problem with coming from a single parent, potentially abusive or in full, my mom was not abusive, but my dad was not great. It's a cycle. And I already recognize that I have tendencies to develop habits that are really hard to break. One of the reasons why, as a young adult, I was really careful about socialized drinking because my dad was an alcoholic and I didn't want to become an alcoholic. And so, I didn't want those patterns to continue, and I didn't want to turn into who he turned into when he was drinking.
Did you feel compelled to start a family because you wanted to create a different family environment than what you experienced?
Yeah, actually, that's a really great way of putting it. I think I wanted to make up for what I didn't have. So I want to be careful here. It wasn't done out of obligation to fix. I wanted a family. When we started a family, I wanted a family. But I think I chose to do it differently than my family did.
So you decided that you were going to pursue adopting.
Mm-hmm.
What did that process look like? I don't know a lot about that, but I have fears around adopting, of course.
Sure.
You never know what you're going to get. And so, what is that application process like? How did it all happen?
Yeah. You don't know what you're going to get, but you also don't know what you're going to get with a natural pregnancy either, which I've had to tell myself a lot in raising both my kids.
Why is that? You have to tell yourself.
Well, because it's hard to raise kids. It's the highest level of joy I have ever felt, and the most pain I have ever felt. It has caused me the most growth as a human and humbled me. I don't think I would have gotten that same experience any other way. I'm a much more compassionate I have a better understanding of what my real priorities are now than I did before I had kids. That mellowed me. So anyway, so we decided to pursue adoption. At the time, our church had an adoption agency, and so, which was really great because adoption's really expensive. And at the time, an average adoption costs around $10,000. We talked to our bishop of our congregation, and he put in the request for us to meet with our church social services program and their adoption arm. She's the one who told us we could expect that it would take 2 years minimum. It was the average for a domestic Caucasian non-drug baby, which was one of our requirements. My husband and I wanted a child who would fit into the family and not feel different. So we wanted them to try to get a child who would look like us as much as possible. No preference on gender, no preference on location in the country, just a baby.
So the drug babies, so you can choose if you are willing to adopt a drug baby or not?
Yeah, you can get really specific. The couple, if they know both parents, family that's tall, family that's short, certain descents, regional descents or cultural descents, things like that. You can get pretty specific. Ours was really just more about the health of the baby. Yeah, and just really wanting that child to understand that they would fit in, how they would fit in and feel included in the family. So we went in, we started filling out the paperwork. It took at least a month to fill out the paperwork. So we had to create basically a photo album of us as a couple. We had to write a letter to the potential birth parents explaining why we would make a good choice for them, for their child. And then we had to create digital copies of that so they could put it on the website. And then they also had physical copies that they made and sent out to the regional offices that it went to. So for us, we said we were open to an adoption from anywhere in the country, but initially it just goes to the Northwest region, which also includes Alaska. So it was just about 5 states. We had to do home visits. They had to have someone come in and check out our home and make sure it was safe for raising a child. We had to do FBI background checks. That's what took the longest. It took probably 3 months to get that back. And it was really just a waiting game for us at that point. We had to do some counseling sessions with our caseworker, and just to prepare us. She talked us through what the experience was like usually it's just the birth mom. Sometimes you get the birth father as well. We did in our case, but usually it's just the birth mom. So we went through how to talk to her, how to reassure her. When you're adopting, it's not about you, it's about her. And then it just kind of went quiet and it became a waiting game, waiting for, I remember my family, I had my sister-in-law and my mom, I think, I can't remember who else, came over and helped me assemble my little scrapbook that we put together and use pictures. And you're really trying to sell yourself to somebody you don't know. Writing I really did it all. My husband just kind of said, it's up to, this is what you want. I support it. He was working full time. I was working too, but I was the one who was motivated to do this. I was the one to really put in the effort here. And so, just having some family there to help us really get that process going was really meaningful. It was nice to see their excitement for us because this is not a conventional way to start a family. I needed that support. I didn't know it at the time, but I really needed their approval. I don't know why that's making me emotional, but.
Did you in some ways feel like you were failing by unable to have one of your own? Probably.
there's always the why isn't it working? Why isn't my body working right? I really felt some of the pressure be lifted off when it was disclosed that it was an issue for both my husband and I. It wasn't just me. I think a lot of women who do struggle with fertility carry a lot of the weight of the blame. Even when it's not assigned, it's our body. We self-assign it. It's really hard. So then it became a waiting game. And then I remember it was a Friday afternoon. Our profile, the paper copies of our profile had been sent out to all the different agency offices, and they had them. They'd had them for about 2 weeks. And our caseworker called us like Wednesday or Thursday that week and said, okay, your profile's now online. So I could now go online and see us. And that Friday, she called us that afternoon and she said, you've been picked. She's taken your profile with her to the hospital. She's in labor. And I said, do we know where? She was in the Boise area. And I said, do we know what she's having? And she said, nope, she doesn't know what she's having.
Oh my God.
Usually what happens is you are matched with a birth mom, and you get some months to get to know her. We went from 0 to there. So that was also really unique. And so we waited, and she had him that evening, and our caseworker called us back and said she's had a little boy. Okay, baby's healthy, everyone's doing well. We needed to be ready to drive to Idaho the next day. So I needed to go get a car seat. I mean, there was no time for research.
Oh my God.
All the research everybody does now, no time. And so we just went to Target. We bought what we thought was best, got some baby clothes, and I went home and unboxed it all and got it set up in our car. We got in the car, and this was mid-afternoon by then. We got in the car and started the drive to Idaho. Spent the night in Pendleton, I think, Oregon. Didn't sleep. Luckily, my husband had a friend who lived in Boise who said, you can come stay at our house. When you adopt out of state, you have to stay in the state until the courts have recorded all the documentation. Otherwise, it's a federal offense, moving a minor across state lines, and you can go to jail. So we needed a place to stay for who knows how long. This was a weekend. So we met up with my husband's friends and got set up in their guest room. They had a baby. They had a new baby at the time. And then basically that afternoon we went to the caseworker's office and sat in a conference room. And talked with their caseworker about the experience. And then they brought in the birth mom and birth father, and we talked to them for a little bit. I remember she was surprised we looked older than we did in our pictures. She was like, I thought you were younger. Like, I'm only 29. What I do remember is then they brought in the grandparents and the baby. They just put him in my arms. And it felt really surreal. It did not feel natural. Because you realize what they're doing here is they're literally giving you a child, versus when you see a friend and you hold the baby and you love the baby and it's, it feels natural. This was like, they're literally giving me this baby, and we're all hoping this is the best thing. Wow. They've had no time to get to know us. We're strangers to them. And I remember mom said to me, "This is hard for the whole family." And I hadn't thought of that at that point. It's not just affecting the birth mom and the birth father. This is hard on the whole family. And at the time, open adoptions are really common now. Open meaning you have a relationship with the birth parents. Sometimes they're even engaged and come over and interact with the family and have regular visits. I remember telling me that she knew this wasn't her baby. She just knew it was meant to go to another family. But at the time, we did what is called a partial open adoption, meaning we didn't exchange last names. All communication went through the agency to keep our identities from being exposed. And but what we did agree to do is exchange letters and pictures so that they could see. For me, it was all about her, so she could feel good about her decision. So her mom, my son's biological maternal grandmother, could feel good about her grandson being raised in a good family. And then we didn't spend too much more time together, and they just got up, and I'm sure we said our goodbyes, I really don't remember, and they just left the room. And the caseworker went out with them, and my husband and I were just sitting there with this baby like, this is really weird, you know? And even when we left, you know, we put him in his car seat, but nobody checked to see if we knew how to put that, like attach it to the car. And I remember we struggled when we got out there. And it's really funny because after having my daughter at the hospital, I mean, they follow you out to the car and they make sure everything is safe. They don't leave you alone until they know that baby is in the car. And so now I'm even more traumatized, like, wow, they just let us go, assuming we knew what to do. So yeah, that was, and then we spent 9 days. We had to wait 9 days before we got permission to take him back to Washington.
So what were those first few days like?
Eric stopped sleeping, in all honesty. My husband is really sensitive to lack of sleep. It affects him greatly. So I pretty much slept in the of our friend's home. I slept in their family room with the baby. We named him Bryce. We slept with Bryce, and so I could do his nightly feedings. And it was really nice to be there with our friends who just had a new baby, so she was able to kind of like, let's do the first bath, and you know, just, you know, have someone to kind of help guide, because I didn't have my mom there, I didn't have my mother-in-law there. We were kind of alone. I couldn't imagine doing it by myself. And I feel like we just kind of hung out. I mean, newborns don't do much. I remember we went to Costco and people are like, oh, cute baby, how old's the baby? And I'm like, 4 days. And they're like, you look amazing. I'm like, yeah, thank you. What was stressful about that time was my husband's mental health deteriorated because he really wasn't sleeping in this. He didn't get any chance to acclimate. I was already acclimated. I was ready. It was really sprung on him. He wasn't super ready. And when we got home, he did have to go see a doctor, and the doctor basically prescribed some sleeping pills. And after a few nights of getting good sleep, he rebounded. But it was a few weeks before we got there, for sure. It was really stressful for him. I think men carry the responsibility of fatherhood very differently. Women are traditionally the nurturers, the cuddling and, you know, feeding and all of that. That's the traditional role and an instinct. I think for men, it's I am now a provider, and a lot of self-doubt comes in. And I think that's what he was feeling, was a lot of doubt of like, he didn't get a chance to acclimate to it, and so suddenly, like, I now have to provide for a family. Even I struggled with that because it happened so quickly. I was still working, and we weren't ready for me not to be working.
Wow.
We were remodeling our home, finances were really tight, and I had to continue working, and I did not want to put him in daycare. My co-worker's mother-in-law lived right next to I worked at Microsoft too, worked at the Microsoft campus, and she was watching her grandson, my coworker's baby, who was about the same age, and so she said, yeah, second one is great, right? They can interact with each other. So she watched my son while I worked for a few more months. And then I got pregnant. So once you bring the child home, the adoption's not done. The birth parents have 6 months to change their minds.
Oh, wow.
So we had to wait 6 months before it was finalized. And I sent letters and pictures every week. I felt tense. I felt really tense. It just still did not feel quite right.
During that 6 months?
It was, well, probably the first 3 months, 3-4 months. I'd have to go back and look, but I sent regular communication, and we didn't hear back, and we didn't hear back. And I thought we would hear back from them, and we didn't. And then we got a letter probably 3 or 4 months in, and from the both of them. They were still together as a couple. And they said they loved the pictures, and they were just really happy that, that this was a good situation. And once she kind of said that, I was able to breathe. And then it was like whatever was holding me back just let go, and it was like, okay, this is my son, 100%. Wow. I don't even think I realized I was holding my breath. It's just, I think I just needed her to say, this was the right choice for me, it's the right choice for you, it's the right choice for him.
Do you think during that waiting period it was blocking you from connecting with your son?
No, he was not on a physical level. He was just such an easy, sweet baby. I think I can say yes mentally now. I think that what it was is it was the background fear. What if they changed their minds? And so to have her say, I'm good with this, I was able to let go of that fear. But babies are so easy to love because you can just, especially newborns, they're just like a doll. You can kiss them and love them, and they're just happy. And when they start smiling, it's just the best thing in the world. And then you start experiencing life through their eyes, and you become young again. Yeah.
Did you feel right away like you were his mother?
I felt right away that I had the responsibility of being his mother. I know through my faith that in the pre-existence we choose our families, and that we chose him and he chose us. I think I still suffer from imposter syndrome because I know he feels different. We have been very open about his adoption because we didn't want him to find out one day that he was adopted and suffer trauma. But I think also in being open, it creates a lot of questions for that child. Why did my birth mom do this? And we provided him with all those answers that she told us about. She was in high school, My son was diagnosed in preschool with pretty severe ADHD, We did a whole bunch of testing with Children's Hospital. So I think between the adoption and then also being different because emotionally he's a little bit different than his peers. Like, where do I put that? Do I put it with the adoption, or do I put it with the, he's just a little bit non-typical? And I think maybe a little bit of the martyr in me wants to say, how you chose to walk through adoption with him could have been better. I've had a lot of therapy. We've done family therapy to help us in raising our kids. I've done personal therapy to overcome my own childhood traumas. I once took my son to a therapist, and because I felt like he needed help in regulating like his emotions and self-esteem and things like that. But I said, I want it to be bi-weekly, and then I want you to see me because I need support as the parent who has to navigate the school district and teachers and other parents and family who are not necessarily kind about a difference or a disability that's not physically, that you can't physically see. And the therapist met with Bryce, and then he met with me, and then the next time he met with me, he's like, Bryce is pretty typical. You're a hot mess. And he's like, I don't need to see Bryce, but you and I need to set up regular sessions. And I stayed with him for 7 years as a therapist. He was really good. And it really helped me work through a lot of that. So even these tears, even recognizing that there is some aspects of fear and sorrow, anxiety about that imposter syndrome mentality around, this is my son, but is it my son? It sits a lot better with me, and I don't run away from the emotions. I've had to fight for him from day one. What makes a parent? It's not biological. It's commitment. What makes a marriage? You're not related, yet you choose to invest in a relationship for the rest of your life with this person. There's no greater commitment. So I don't view parenting as strictly biological. My son is a lot like me. He looks like us. There's never, people don't realize he's adopted unless we mention it. But he has a lot of same personality traits that I have, which have really helped in raising him. There's been some challenges with him, and I can relate because I had a lot of the same challenges. It was just how it was meant to be.